Pickett crept up the side of the slick and warm stone, part of a heap that had fallen into this cavern recently by the smell of them. She raised her head just enough to look over the top and spotted the glimmer of heat coming from the 3 peck she had been following for quite a while. She was under no illusions that the slim, sneaky peck didn't know she was there. Of course they did. She was simply keeping her distance, as was the way of both their kinds. Something had stopped the peck in their tracks, and they obviously knew this trail as well as she did, if not better, and she could tell they were checking out the disturbance to see if there was new passages and such. Who knew with the peck, though? She heard they could walk through stone like it was water anyway. Pickett chewed slowly on some dried centipede, wiping the spicy bits of shell off her lips rather than noisily spitting them out, patiently observing the peck as they talked silently with their hands touching, huddled over something on the cavern floor, and then, just like that, they were gone. She blinked, wondering if she had glanced away and missed it, so suddenly had they vanished from sight. She crept back down the rock and crouched on the ground among the many boulders, and then spun about with her hand pick drawn and ready as there was a clink of stone on stone nearby. There were the peck, looking right at her, hands up. One stepped closer, put one hand flat out, and the other on top with the fingers down on the other hand, and with one finger made a tapping gesture. Just like that, they stooped low, drew their cloaks over them, blocking all heat, vanishing from sight. Pickett crouched low again, this time putting her sensitive sniff-nibbler nose right against the rocky floor, holding her breath and waiting. There, sure enough, she felt it. Tap, tap, tap. There were Kruthik nearby. It was time to go. Nothing she could find in this cavern would be worth the risk, and she needed to get back home and tell her people that this trail was now closed. They simply could not spare any warriors to come and deal with this, and anyway, it was close enough to the hated Drow Elves' territory. Let them deal with it. Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology and strategy videos on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider backing me on Patreon and subscribing to me here as I upload twice a week, so be sure to hit that notification bell. The kruthiks are a curious, 6-limbed, highly effective cross between a reptile and an insectoid. They have long, thin bodies, roughly 3 feet or just under 1 meter long, with a serrated spine. Their body is covered in shiny, metallic-looking chitin segments, with colours ranging from grey to black to steel to silver to a pale green. They would look very much like giant insects were it not for the bare, reptilian-skinned neck, sides and torso and their thin tail. The head has 2 reptile eyes. The top, sides and eyes of the head are protected by hard plates along the jaw that serve as a similar function as mandibles. Their jaws are filled with very sharp and strong teeth capable of grinding up stone, but not well suited to making bite attacks due to the relatively long and weaker neck. Their limbs, however, are perfectly suited to clambering around and digging, and also form exceptional stabbing weapons. They have large forelimbs and rear limbs, and much smaller, more delicate pair of limbs just behind their forelimbs, normally tucked closer to their sides or hanging down under their torso, which they manipulate things with finer dexterity, such as moving eggs or picking small morsels from the carcass. As they grow from young to adult stages, the spiny, jointed plates along their spine and limbs eventually grow to protect the full body. In the unprotected parts of the Kruthik's body, organic lights of a colour corresponding to that of the Kruthik's body glow are their heat signature. This is mainly for their own benefit, as many Underdark creatures rely more on their ability to sense heat than their sensitivity to light. Only recently appearing in the 3rd edition of the game, they are detailed for 5th edition in the pages of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which gives more detail on their life cycle and the nature of their hives. Kruthiks hatch from eggs laid by female adults. Each egg is about the size of an adult human's head and hatches within a month, which should give adventurers some indication that the adult Kruthik they've seen so far may not be the largest size the species can attain. The tiny Kruthik hatchlings are harmless, rarely stray far from the nest, and feed primarily on offal and opportunistically feed on each other. Any injury, sickness, weakness, or lack of growth will result in the other hatchlings killing and feeding on them. Within a month, the survivors become young Kruthiks, large enough to hunt and defend themselves, still small in size. All Kruthik from even that early age instinctively stay together and hunt in groups. They constantly maintain contact with each other and communicate via tapping, as well as hisses and chittering noises when they're in close proximity to each other. Over the next 6 months, these young Kruthik hunt and feed. It occupies almost all of their time and pretty much ensures that the area around a Kruthik hive is stripped clean of any vermin which may possibly threaten the eggs and food larders of the hive, as well as forming a roaming perimeter of small swarms of youngsters who, at the very least, can signal the alarm of a more serious threat if they encounter one. By the end of 6 months, the young adults who have survived will have grown to 3-foot body length of an adult. The lifespan of an adult Kruthik is only up to 7 years. They still spend a lot of time searching for and consuming prey, but also concern themselves far more with the hive and with breeding more Kruthik, as well as tending to their leader, the Hive Lord. Adult Kruthiks grow spiky protrusions on their legs that they can fling these dagger-sized spikes at enemies beyond the reach of their claws, much like a tarantula can. They are obviously larger than the youngsters, and this provides a distinct visual difference between their life stages, but in combat they still operate in groups, which provides all Kruthik with the special ability called pack tactics. Any Kruthik has advantage on an attack roll against a creature if at least one of the Kruthik's allies is within 5 feet of that creature and the ally is incapacitated. Even on an individual basis, a single adult Kruthik is a formidable challenge, rating 2 encounter. They have a natural armor class of 18, 68 plus 12, or between 18 and 60, with an average of 39 hit points. They are very fast and agile, dexterity of 16, speed of 40 feet per round on any floor, wall or roof that is not difficult terrain. Plus, they have the ability to tunnel through the ground at tremendous speed. Anything other than solid rock, they burrow at 20 feet per round. But even through solid rock, those blade-like limbs burrow through at 10 feet per round, leaving a 5-foot diameter tunnel behind them. They have pretty keen senses. Dark vision is only 60 feet, but it is matched in range by their tremor sense. Their passive perception is 11, and they have +1 on their wisdom-based senses and advantage on any checks involving their keen sense of smell, so they track creatures through the use of smell underground or above ground. They have a high level of intelligence for a hive predator. Their clicks, chitters, hisses, and taps constitute their own Kruthik language, and so it is, in theory, possible for someone to communicate with them without the use of special powers, but with an IQ of 7 for adult Kruthik, they have a very narrow view of their world and their role in it for themselves and any other creatures they encounter. One interesting thing is that they recognize the value of creatures such as constructs, elementals, oozes, and undead, and use such creatures to help guard their hive. Kruthiks are smart enough to barricade some tunnels and dig new ones to keep these creatures safely away from their eggs, but they will funnel invaders who threaten their hive into killing zones and choke points, creating pit traps with oozes at the bottom, dead ends and switchbacks where constructs and undead are wandering, or zones where elementals dwell in special environments that can prove extremely hazardous to the unprepared invader. Hives will face off against serious threats such as adventuring parties by sending waves of young Kruthik in first, pushed forward by the adults who sacrifice the smaller juveniles in order to soften up and assess the strength and tactics of the threat. Hive Lords are typically only encountered at the heart of a Kruthik hive in the largest chamber, often surrounded by sub-chambers containing eggs, hatching pits with animal remains and groups of hatchlings, plus larder chambers with stored food, including the Hive Lord's own supply of prey that is kept fed to them by their attending guards while it's still alive. Kruthik are perfectly fine eating all sorts of carrion, but they do prefer to eat live prey if they can, so the Kruthik Hive Lord, not able to hunt like the rest of them, will be fed live prey by its attendants. Young Kruthik are still well protected with an armor class of 16, but can only take one good hit before they go down, and are also driven by simple instincts, if not following the directions of older, more experienced and intelligent Kruthik who will be directing them from nearby. They have 1 attack per round, +5 to hit, doing 1d4 plus 3 piercing damage to a single target. Adults have 2 attacks per round, either flinging their limb spikes like throwing knives with a short range of 20 feet, or at disadvantage on the strike at long range of up to 60 feet, or cancelled out if they're using their pack tactics. Ranged or melee attacks are both +5 to hit, and the spikes do 1d3 1d4 plus 3 piercing damage. The melee strikes with their limbs do 1d6 plus 3 piercing damage. And keep in mind, they attack in groups, so this will accumulate during the round to total a formidable offensive capability that they will be striking for almost every combat round with advantage on their attack rolls. The Hive Lord is large, much larger than the medium-sized adults. They form the heart of each hive. If they die, the entire population will relocate, and the largest adult among them will remaining will undergo a metamorphic process, spinning a cocoon around itself and transforming over a few weeks while the rest of the colony excavates and prepares a new hive complex around it, transporting the cocoon if necessary. When the Hive Lord emerges, it is the size of a horse and counts as a challenge rating 5 creature. It has an armor class of 20, 12 d10 plus 16, or between 48 and 156, with an average of 102 hit points. I tend to max out the hit points on boss monsters because in cases like this, there is only one and it has been kept protected and well fed by the hive, so I don't roll for how durable it is. I just adjust the total on the fly before the fight starts based on how low on resources the player characters are. It's a subjective judgment call, part of the job of a dungeon master. Hive Lords have all the abilities of other Kruthik. They are not like ant or termite queens. They are not the sole producers of eggs in the colony. They're more like the brains of the operation, with an IQ of 10 and a wisdom of 14. They coordinate and direct colonies' growth and activities, constantly receiving and giving out information. They primarily protect the egg and food storage chambers and attempt to lock up the threat to the hive in no holds barred, no quarter combat, while the rest of the colony floods into the largest chamber to help or grab eggs and food and evacuate the hive, and the Hive Lord who fights the invaders then does so to the death. The Hive Lord makes 2 stab attacks or spike attacks per round, plus 7 to hit with a 10-foot reach with the melee attacks due to their large size, doing 1d10 plus 4 piercing damage. The spike range is larger. The close range is 30 feet and a long range of 120 feet, and they do 1d6 plus 4 piercing damage that one. I would also freely add some poison or toxin effect on a critical hit, perhaps causing sickness in the target unless they make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw at the end of their next turn. On a critical hit with a spike attack, maybe even allow the attack to pin the target to the floor or wall with a DC 15 strength check to tear themselves free of it and be able to move freely again. I love the idea of this big spike attack basically pinning you like a throwing dagger. That would make a lot more sense for the Hive Lord trying to literally pin down and control the characters while the rest of the colony evacuates. One last special feature of the Hive Lords is its ability, much like an ankheg, to vomit up a big gout of potent stomach acid and spray it out of its mouth. The acid spray recharges on a result of 5 or 6 on a 6-sided die, rolled at the start of each round after it has used this ability for the first time in combat. The acid spray jets out in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that area, including its own Kruthik, must make a DC 14 dexterity saving throw, taking 4d10 acid damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Kruthik are very, very dangerous within their lair. The adults will throw young swarms at the player characters. They will lead the characters deeper into the hive, which, with their 5-foot wide tunnels, is not a very forgiving tactical space. There are holes in the walls, floor, and ceiling which don't bother the Kruthik at all thanks to their movement abilities, but can prove disastrous as player characters rush in after one of the adults. They find themselves attacked from front and rear with spike attacks and sides and above and directly below from tunnels and fresh excavations made by other adults who have ambushed them from all sides, all attacking with advantage. This is a serious amount of damage and the characters are now trapped, having to fight their way either further in or back out as best they can. Team up your Kruthik with Umber Hulks and Kegs if you feel really nasty. A flooded chamber with a few Chul in them will definitely kill at least one of your player characters. Modern Kanan theorizes that Kruthik may actually serve as nature's way of keeping civilizations in check. Certainly, a hive once detected close to a population centre, either in the Underdark, where they tend to be attracted to heat sources such as geothermally active vents, volcanic zones, or the heat of dwarven forges, or above ground, where they will be drawn to livestock-rich farmland or the population density of a city, will cause quite a bit of trouble for that area. Whole cities are actually in quite a bit of danger from a Kruthik colony, which can split off into many new hives as the amount of prey and resources in the area can supply the Kruthik with more and more resources that they can multiply out of control. If not dealt with swiftly and thoroughly, the Kruthik will pop up again and again, becoming a little bit harder to root out and exterminate each time as they adjust their strategy to better survive, hunt, and breed in their new territory. Please hit the like button if you made it this far. Subscribe if you like what I do. Check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and all the full scripts for these videos. Buy some merchandise. Wear your geek with pride. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.